didn't even go live. Fuck, now it does.
Hey, hey, teach me how to do it. Hey,
teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck.
everybody love me. Everybody love me. Everybody love me. You ain't messing with my Dougie.
Teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck. Teach me how to duck.
Everybody love me. Everybody love me.
Teach me how to duck. Teach me.
I can't let it play the whole time. I have to stop it.
I think he thought about it.
We just watch highlights for an hour.
Yeah.
What's up, you beauties? If you don't know by now, welcome to HW episode 3.43. I'm Jim here as always with Jack Smith. We're joined by a special guest. I'm sure you know this face, Mr. Dan Silver. If you're not listening, please make sure to subscribe, follow, and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Spreaker. Quick shout out to the affiliate sites, fullpresscoverage.com, bellyupsports.com. While you're listening to the episode, check out our site, hwhockey.net. All right, boys, let's talk. Dan, how you been, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing good, man. As I said when we were talking before the show, like I'm happy I don't have to watch this Flyers team play hockey anymore. And you know, the teams I watch are actually know how to like do things like win games and score goals and not fall flat on their face. So you know, I'm just excited not to have to watch these guys, but I'm excited also to see what's going to happen over the summer. So you know, I think we're getting towards the end of the playoffs, and things are going to start happening. So I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Jack, how you been, brother?
I completely agree with Dan there, especially at the end. We entered round 3, the final 4, and the first thing I thought was we were that much closer to the expansion draft, which is like the first really big thing of the offseason outside of just trading and whatnot. So I'm ready to go too. Like things need to happen. Things change. Players need to be traded. It's not looking good because the Flyers apparently are taking a hard pass. It could be a smoke screen. We'll see. Hard pass on Mr. Dougie. And apparently Seth Jones is Andrew McDonald. So what do we do now?
Christ. I forgot about that, dude. Dan, did you see that article? I mean, I'm sure the guy who wrote it is a great guy.
Broad Street Hockey article?
Yeah, it was.
It may have.
You know, and Brad is, I think Brad Keffer wrote it, if I remember correctly. He's actually seems like a pretty smart kid. I think maybe the headline killed it a little bit. I don't know. I mean, Seth Jones obviously isn't Andrew McDonald, but yeah, I mean, the analytics guys, they have nightmares about the Flyers bringing in Seth Jones. So it's, we'll see. I was a little, with Jack, what was talking about with the Dougie Hamilton stuff, what happened today was basically that Elliot Friedman, who's a pretty big insider, came out and pretty much said that he was talking to someone and he thought the Flyers would be, one of the big suitors on Dougie Hamilton. And he was told that, they might prefer Seth Jones and maybe some others, or that they might be targets for them. And a lot of people were kind of grabbing on it in Twitter and saying, hey, the Flyers are waving the white flag. Like, this is ridiculous. They don't want Dougie Hamilton. Like, that's not how I'm looking at it. I mean, the report literally was just saying that they prefer Jones over Hamilton. And if that's the case, and there might be some other guys that they prefer, I don't think it means that the offseason is going to be a disaster, and they just prefer other guys potentially. And it's just a report, by the way. So we don't even know if it's true or not. But Elliot Friedman's obviously a pretty good source. Seth Jones is the guy that I've been saying all along that I think they're going to end up with. So I'm not surprised by it either.
Well, let's say it is true. Why do you think it would be that they would prefer a Seth Jones over a Dougie Hamilton, who we know? I mean, you saw in my brilliant highlight reel there that he's an incredible talent. Why would they prefer Seth Jones over Dougie Hamilton?
I mean, there's a couple different reasons. The first reason is that Seth Jones is cheaper next year. What's his salary? Is either $5 or $6 million for next season, and then you're going to have to re-sign him after that. Or even if you re-sign him now to a longer contract, his salary is not going to change for next season. So if you say that Dougie Hamilton's going to be $9 to $10 million, so right off the top, Seth Jones is going to allow you to have $4 to $5 million more next season to try and build a winner. And we're trying to win now, right? So one reason that they might prefer Seth Jones to Doug Hamilton is because he's going to be cheaper. Also with the contract perspective, Doug Hamilton, someone's going to sign the guy. Someone's going to do a sign and trade, and they're going to have to sign him to an 8-year contract for $9 to $10 million a year. That's a lot of term, and that's a lot of contract. And even if you think that he's a better player than Seth Jones, even though I think Seth Jones does some things better than Hamilton, some things maybe that the Flyers need more than Hamilton. He's got a little bit more snarl in his game, but that's a lot of term and money to throw at someone like Seth Jones. Maybe you don't have to sign him to that long. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe they trade for Seth Jones and don't know if he's going to re-sign, and they're just kind of doing it for next year and hope that they can sell him on it. So I think those are some of the reasons there. Just from a salary cap perspective, you've got to sign a backup goalie. You've probably got to add another defenseman. You've probably got to do something with the forwards. Also, you're not going to be able to get any of these guys unless you trade away a JVR or a Ghost or a Voracek. So I think even if you think that Hamilton's a little better, you could, like I said, make the argument that it's all about money for next season, about preferring Jones.
I think the interesting thing there is, we look at this Flyers team, and I think most fans can admit that the team has multiple needs, right? They don't just need one guy. And from what you just said, I agree with. As much as I would like to watch Dougie Hamilton play, they can't really afford, if they're trying to build this team back up, they're not one guy away. They can't spend $9-10 million on one player. They just can't. They're not in a position to do that. So I agree there. And, people are going to get angry that, we use the word cheaper. They need to go out and get a cheaper player. But that doesn't mean you can't put a guy like Seth Jones or even my guy Ryan Ellis in there and have, just as much success, because you're going to have more money to, like you said, fill out some of the other holes in the roster. They do need another goalie. They do need another defenseman. We haven't even talked about the bottom lines yet, the bottom two lines. Like, they need physical. You're looking at the teams in the playoffs. They have everything, top to bottom. They can roll 4 lines. They have 3 defensive units. They have 2 starting goalies. The Flyers have holes when you look at it like that. And I think spending $9 to $10 million on Dougie Hamilton, as much as I would love to see him play, this is not Jim saying that I don't want the Flyers to be good and I don't want Dougie Hamilton. I just don't think it's the smart move to make.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, like you were saying, and I'm completely on board with that. And like Dan alluded to, there's guys on this team, whether we think they could potentially be with us long term, like a Travis Konechny, like a Felipe Myers or Sanheim, depending. One of them's not going to be here next year. I'm almost positive. And some of those guys are going to get moved. Some money's going to be freed up. Somebody's going to go to Seattle. Hopefully, somebody with some serious cap. Trading for Seth Jones makes more sense in that regard. Hoping you can get him cheaper makes more sense than a guy on the free agent. Yeah, you may trade and sign him, but you're still paying market value. Otherwise, or at least something very close to it. Otherwise, what's the point? And I even think I heard the asking price to trade for his rights is like a 2nd-round pick. Not that that's killer. It's just another factor. It's just another thing that you have to do just to talk to him. And I can see the Flyers already having something of they've already had Seth Jones in their mind, and they're going to go down that path until it's not there anymore. And as far as reports and whatnot, I remember listening to 94.1, and they essentially were talking about the Flyers and, a source close to the team. And the host essentially just goes, I can't remember his name, Anthony. I haven't listened to 94 in forever. The main host guy, the guy, goofball. Gargano, thank you. He looks over to Keith Jones and he just asked the question, what do you think the Flyers are going to do? And he goes, do you think they'll do this? He goes, no, I don't think so. And he turns to the chick on the show, whose name escapes me as well. And he goes, so a source close to the team thinks that they're not going to do that. Like, it's that easy to get a quote unquote source from the team because he technically is a source from the team. So I don't put any, it's all with a grain of salt, especially this early in the offseason. It's all a grain of salt. I think they have a guy they like. They're going to explore that route. And until they hear otherwise, or it's something they don't like, that's all it is. And I don't put too much into it. I understand the money aspect, and they have too many holes on this team to throw a lot of money at one guy, especially we still have a flat cap. But as far as things are right now, they have a preferred preference, which most teams should. They shouldn't shoot from the hip willy-nilly and just take, hey, this is the best guy on the market. Let's get him. Like, there's got to be some kind of thought process behind this. So we make our jokes, but at the same time, I think it doesn't bother me one way or another.
Yeah, I mean Jones is making 5.4 million for next year. So let's say Hamilton's going to sign for 9 million. You're talking about 3.5 million just for next year, and you've got a team you need to try and win now. Drew's not getting any younger, so leaves him a little bit of space. The other interesting thing with the Seth Jones trade is, and someone today on Twitter was like, "Oh, I bet they already have something in place for Jones, and they're waiting to announce it until after the expansion draft." I doubt that's the case, but there are some ramifications there, because if you trade for Seth Jones before the expansion draft, obviously you have to protect him. So right now, you'd assume that they're going to protect Provorov, Sanheim, and Myers. Now, you don't know what you're going to have to trade away for Jones, right? Like one of those guys might be traded away for him. But, Shane Gostisbehere is a guy who, at this point, I don't know if they're just going to give him away for free. Jim would probably like them to give him away for free, although not to a team where he's going to be a top pairing defenseman on the power play, because then I'm going to win my bet where he's going to have to buy me a ghost jersey if he scores more than like 60 points. But anyway.
I hope he does, though. I would love to buy you that jersey.
That would be great. Either way, I'm going to get you a meal somewhere. But the expansion draft brings something into play there where maybe they would wait if they're going to do a Jones thing. Like maybe they know right now what they're going to do. I think that they're going to be aggressive. I mean, people kind of like making fun of the fact of how bad Chuck Fletcher's offseason was last year. And it was super bad, like really bad. But as bad as that was, his first offseason was pretty good. He went out and he got Niskanen right away. He got Braun right away. He got the rights to Kevin Hayes right away and signed him. So, he's had one pretty good offseason and one pretty bad offseason. I haven't seen anything that makes me think that they're not going to be really aggressive this offseason. Now, will they be the right moves? I don't know. But I think that they're definitely going to be trying to make some moves.
I think we need to see moves. Could you imagine if this team doesn't make any moves? If they just go into next year as is? Yeah, I don't think so either. So I'm excited to see that. So you said that your top target is Seth Jones. And is that solely because of salary? Why else do you want Seth Jones, Dan?
I mean, I don't know. I think Ryan Ellis might be like Ryan Ellis is probably a guy who what you're getting more than Seth Jones. I still think he might cost more. I just like the fact that he was so good a couple of years ago, Seth Jones. I mean, I remember watching him in the playoffs, and he was just dominant. And you're saying to yourself, man, this guy's going to win a Norris Trophy one of these days. He might be one of the best defensemen in the league. And his last few years have not been very good. I mean, this year, and we've seen it ad nauseum from the analytics guys on Twitter, like he was literally one of the least effective defensemen in the NHL this year. It's a really bad year. And it's hard to blame playing in Columbus because Zach Werenski, his defense partner, was like one of the top defensemen based on analytics. So you're kind of taking a leap of faith with Seth Jones. I just think that he's got some nastiness to his game, and the glimpses that I've seen have shown me that he can be one of the best defensemen in the league. And I think it's like a hope and a prayer, right? I like the fact that his dad is an assistant coach with the Sixers. Like it seems like it could be a really good fit here. And he seems like a kind of guy that the city would really like. Whereas Doug Hamilton, has had some issues in the past playing in big market cities, and he's not soft, but he's kind of get that reputation a little bit. I just think like Seth Jones. I think Seth Jones has the possibility to be a complete disaster, but I also think that he has the possibility to turn out to be like really, really good franchise-altering defenseman. And you got to take that risk. Like if they go out and get Seth Jones and he's a disaster, no one's going to – I mean, people probably will blame Fletcher for that, but I think people want to see something like that.
I mean, so educate me a little bit, because I know you're somewhat of a numbers guy, a little bit more than I am. When people want to talk about Seth Jones analytics, what specifically are they looking at?
So one of the things that he's particularly poor at is defending zone entries. And he's not the most fluid backwards skater. And he's also like not that aggressive at the blue line when he's defending the zone. And there have been a couple really good articles. I forget who put them together. They kind of showed a bunch of video excerpts of sort of that show Seth Jones and how poor he's been recently at zone entries, which is, you know, you want your top defenseman on your team to be able to defend the zone. That's one of the main things that I've kind of seen. People talk about he passes the eye test, and he really does. But some of the statistical numbers, and I'd say I'm more of like an eye test guy. I'm not like a diehard analytics guy. Honestly, I don't follow it all that closely. It's more of like what I'm seeing. But it is the defending zone entry for me is like the big thing I've seen that people really kind of harp on with him. He's very good around the net, like defending around the net.
Is it because of his size that he's maybe a little bit slower when the opposition team's moving into the offensive zone? Like what could be causing him to, you know, be weak there?
I don't know, man. I would honestly just be guessing. He just, like I said, he's kind of like not the most fluid backward skater. So, you know, I don't want to sit here and make stuff up. Like I don't really know for sure, but I know that's something where he kind of falls short. Yeah.
And so I know that I'm on here a lot, kind of bashing analytics and whatnot. I pay attention to them. You know, they do factor in, but they're not the Bible on, you know, what determines if a player is good or not. And I think if it's showing you something, then it's like, okay, well, let's look at this. Let's see if he actually is. And admittedly, I haven't watched a lot of Seth Jones play. I never watch the Blue Jackets. I don't give a shit about the Blue Jackets. I'll watch the Blue Jackets play when they play the Flyers. And I can't sit here and tell you that Seth Jones has stood out to me to the point where I'm like, man, would love if the Flyers got that guy. Now, the shape that the Flyers are in now, and we know who Seth Jones is he's a top pairing defenseman. The Flyers need a top pairing defenseman. Let's go get him. I'm on that train. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want him. Is he my top guy? Not necessarily. And you know, I don't know, Jack. What do you think?
He checks a lot of boxes. I mean, it's the analytics crowd likes to come out and poo-poo a lot of things. When I look at that, I look at the eye test, which is always number one for me because that's what I watch the games with. And it, you know, I see a lot of that stuff and it's like, okay, I understood. We could work on that, I guess. But like one of the other things he's great at is like getting the puck out of the zone, which is a massive issue for the Flyers. Like, you know, and he's good around the net, which everybody's screaming about, getting the guys away from the goalie and screens and all that. You know, he does all that stuff, right? We're going to harp on zone entries. The guys are eventually going to get in the zone anyway. If he can improve on that, great. You know, but from what I've seen, he's been a hell of a defenseman in his entire career. His last, year and a half, 2 years have been a little bit rough. Columbus has been a little bit rough. Are we in no way, shape, or form? He comes in and he's a better version, at least this point of his career, a better right-handed version than Ivan Provorov. And I can see them being a legitimate pair. Where Hamilton, it's kind of like, where do you really play those two together? Do you change things up? There's too much good than there is bad. And I think that's why you have to label your article, he's Andrew McDonald, to get it out there. Now, his points, I saw the video that he put on there. He's not wrong in what he said. But you're harping on one thing and delving deep. And there's a lot more to playing defense, especially the guy's going to be, 27 in October? It's a lot more. And they develop, especially the big ones, they develop a lot, regular players and also other defensemen. I don't think he's done developing. I think it's something if they see it, I'm sure they do. They have their own analytics crew. It's supposed to be used as a tool. You're not supposed to be married to it. It's something they can work on. Meanwhile, he brings all that other snarl, which the Flyers have had nothing of, and as well as plenty of other skill. He was supposed to be I think he was the 4th overall pick of the draft that year. Like he's got skill, he's got talent. He's at one point was in the conversation to be, could this be like the next top 3 defenseman in the league? Like that doesn't happen by accident. His skills there. He did it at the NHL level. The defensively, Columbus is kind of leaning on him. Werenski had a very good year. He did miss a chunk of time. And there are concerns, but there's concerns with every good player. So I think that maybe we can use this to our advantage. And if we do trade for him, we are not paying $10, $11 million or whatever the hell Hamilton's going to get. And we have other needs anyway. And that money can be spent properly. And then you put him with a guy like Provorov, and you got a top pairing all of a sudden where you really haven't had since Niskanen, and Niskanen was about to retire. So these guys could grow together and really be something for like the next, I don't know, 8 to 10 years or whatnot. I mean, I'm being dramatic there, but there's so much more good and positive than there is negative in my eyes.
Do you think his game allows Ivan Provorov to take his game to the next level? Do you think it allows Ivan Provorov to play his own style instead of having to cater to whoever he's been playing with for the last 3 or so years? Dan?
First of all, let me mention that we have failed to mention the most important thing about Seth Jones, which is I was looking at his age. He is my birthday. So both Seth Jones and I have October 3rd.
Go get him,
birthday.
Chuck.
So, I mean,
go get him.
Let's go get him.
Meant to be.
I think, the Niskanen thing's interesting because Niskanen was certainly like not one of the best defensemen in the league when they got him, but the way that he played, I think he really allowed Ivan Provorov to kind of have his best year as a professional, because Niskanen is just so calm back there, and he just kind of like always makes the right play, not flashy. He's almost like it's like he allows people to like mirror themselves when they're playing with him, because he's very adaptable with him. Seth Jones is like not a player like that. I mean, you're talking about a guy with a ton of raw skill who's going to be, skating around the offensive zone a little bit, maybe coming out of position sometimes to lay a big hit. So I don't know if I necessarily say that like he will 100% for sure allow Ivan Provorov to become his best self, but he might, and he playing with a guy that's that talented, you never know if they're going to have chemistry. But if those guys have chemistry, they could immediately become one of the top defense pairs in the league. So again, with all of it, you're kind of, again, taking a chance, right? But bringing in someone like this who could be really good, but also maybe could be a guy who had a couple really good years and now is on the downward spiral. So I don't think there's anything guaranteed with how he's going to pair up with Provorov and how he's going to make Provorov look. Certainly it's going to be better than the guys that Provorov was playing with this year, because it was a dumpster fire basically. But I think it's you bring him in for the potential of what could be there if these guys click.
I'm wondering if you guys think he might be a better partner for Travis Sanheim. What do you think about that?
I mean, he's got to be on the top pair because you want those guys playing big minutes,
Yeah, and that goes to our argument before many shows. They need more guys, and particularly to play with Sanheim. And then you really got something cooking there. And I think with Seth Jones, if you're saying for Provorov to play his best game and you're leaning to that more offensive play and that more, take it himself and all that, he did play with Werenski. Werenski did a lot of that. It's there. He's done it before. Maybe Provorov isn't offensively as Werenski is. Maybe they take turns. That's where the chemistry comes in. That's where time playing together comes in. Hopefully that's the case. It is a big risk, but at the same time, I don't see why not. And if he is not the more fluid skater, then you probably should let Provorov, and I know you're talking backwards, but still, you should probably let Provorov do his thing, and you're the bigger body. You should probably stay back unless there's a real opportunity. And, they get the feel of that as time goes on. And hopefully that's what it is. And I think now they're getting more mature. They're getting older. They'll figure that out. And if this is, of course, if all things go right, but I think you really could have something there if that's the case, and that's how they grow.
I'm wondering if playing with a guy like Werenski factors into that. Sorry, Dan, what was that analytics stat? You said he wasn't that great?
No, it's just the way that he defends zone entries. Not very effective at
that. Does it take into account the situation, or is that just like in general? Like, could it be like that his partner plays more an offensive game and he kind of gets stuck, in the D zone, I don't know, covering for his offensive defensive partner type thing? Or is it just a general?
Yeah, I don't think it takes into account like what his defense partner's doing on the ice. So if Werenski's kind of leaves him hanging a little bit, I don't think it takes that into account. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
But
I'm genuinely just wondering. I really don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, I think you should. I'll try and dig up the article for you, but and it might have been the Keffer article, or it might have
Okay.
been one of Charlie's articles. It just had a bunch of videos that showed Seth Jones kind of defending zone entries and highlighting kind of like where he hasn't been as effective with it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, that was the Broad Street Hockey article, and he also said like he showed clips from a couple of games, and he said like I watched 20 games just to be sure and whatnot to really drive it home. I get it, and
Not a fan of
Jimmy,
Seth.
it's a good point. I mean, if you're playing with an offensive guy, and your team's not doing well this year, it means you're probably not scoring as many goals. You're probably going to find yourself back there more often. I just for the eye test for me, I get it. He's still, I don't know if he's worth every penny, but not very many guys who sign these kind of deals are. You just hope they're close enough. You think Hamilton's going to be worth it at $11 million? I mean, I doubt it. I think it'll be damn good, but $11 million, that's a lot of money. You think Mitch Marner's worth that money right now? You think that's what Toronto's thinking? Like, oh, yeah, we nailed this contract. And that wasn't even a free agent contract. That was a restricted free agent. So, I mean, you got to take a chance. This seems, again, the cheaper option. If you're going to take a big chance like that, take the cheaper chance. And you clear out some guys here. I don't want to call them all of them dead weight, but maybe enough of them. And you reallocate that money elsewhere. And I think Dan said it best. Like you need like two guys on defense, a backup goalie, and you have to do something different with the forwards. There's not enough going on there. And if they can do all that, and Seth Jones winds up on our defense with other guys, it's a better defensive pairing overall. It just is. Like this defense was. I know it's a lot of money, but if you spend it moving around right, it doesn't hurt you too bad. And he's always going to be a big guy. Can't teach that. So I'm not too worried about that. So, and this defense made the Phillies bullpen last year look like nothing. So I'm all about that.
So this leads me to my next. We're going to go, if you guys haven't noticed, we're going down the totem pole a little bit here as far as potential defensive acquisitions. This leads me to my guy. And even though he's third on this totem pole, he has the best contract. He, in my opinion, is the player most like Matt Niskanen, fills the need in almost every way possible that this defense needs. Maybe he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays big. Hence, I know someone's going to bring up his injuries, but Ryan Ellis. And so think back a couple years ago, Flyers made a huge blockbuster deal, or maybe they were free agents. They brought in guys Kimmo Timonen and Scott Hartnell of the Nashville Predators. There was talk. We talked to Anthony Sanfilippo at the trade deadline, the day after the trade deadline. There was groundwork laid for a potential deal in the future. Nashville was not supposed to be in the playoff hunt. Somehow got into the playoffs, so they kind of stayed pat. You can't tell me otherwise that the Flyers are going to make a deal, and it's going to be with Nashville. And it's going to be for multiple players. We have a comment in the comment section here. I'm going to bring it up real quick from my buddy Amadeo. Here's his defensive pairings. And so it could look something like this, as crazy as it could be. But you see Provorov, you see Sanheim. In my opinion, if there is a deal, Myers is going somewhere else, especially if they're bringing in Jones and Ellis. But I wouldn't be shocked if they found a way to bring in Ryan Ellis and Matthias Ekholm. What do you guys? I wouldn't be shocked. I think there is a way to do it.
Jones.
Yeah, and that would be great. But it would fill your right-handed defense needs. Ekholm obviously is a left-handed shot, but he can play on the right. Pair him up with Sanheim. You pair Ryan Ellis up with Provorov. Boom. These guys can complement. Ellis and Ekholm add your veteran leadership, your stability, and you're set. They can play some of the tougher minutes. They can take some of the pressure off Sanheim, Provorov, guide them, help them mature, whatever you need. I saw a comment on Twitter earlier today that the Flyers don't necessarily need to go out. I think it was from my buddy Anthony DeMarco. They don't necessarily need to go out and bring in cornerstone players because although they've underachieved, they have cornerstone franchise pieces. His comment was something to the tune of they need insulation. And that's kind of where I am. They need to go out and bring in players that can help the younger guys they have now succeed. They need to bring in I'm saying complementary, but I mean good complementary players that can help the guys we have get better. And that's why I think Nashville's got to be the trade partner. You have to at least get one. And the one I'm talking about is Ellis. If you can find a way to bring in Ekholm, I think he's got 1 year left, so they might hang on to him and use him as a trade deadline chip. I don't know, but that would be my move. I mean, what do you guys think?
What's your proposed offer to get both Ellis and Ekholm?
So for both, I haven't thought about both. It would have to be a boatload. But if we're talking about just Ellis, and just kind of browsing through Nashville's roster a couple weeks ago, I would try to ship off Voracek. I'm including Myers. Obviously, there's first round picks involved. They have a lot of cap tied up in the center position in Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson. One would assume that they would try to move one, with the expansion draft and whatnot. Maybe they take a shot with Nolan Patrick, maybe Morgan Frost. I mean, you put a package like that together. Let's say Patrick, Voracek, Myers, and a pick for Ellis, and I don't know what else. Something would have to come back, but you could do something with that, I think. What do you guys think? It's a lot. It's a lot to move.
When I hear Voracek, if it were playing NHL and I see the bars, the value of the trade goes down. It's so much money at the wing position, and I know they could. I get what you're saying about their center depth, and they're just moving their center issue to wing. You know what I mean, money wise. Like it's different. I get it, but I think if they're going to move those guys, and they probably could replenish some of their defense with their younger guys, but I think they're going to look for less money, maybe more talent, maybe more draft picks. Maybe if it's not a rebuild move, maybe it's a retooling move. And Voracek is more of just a different type of player in here. I could see them trading for Ellis. It's not in my top 3 or 5 even. Realistically, but I still think it's possible. I seriously doubt that Voracek would be in the deal. It would be.
That's kind of my thing, though.
You're not going to want to give up.
If you look at Nashville's roster, they have this kid, Eli Tolvanen, coming up, sniper. Philip Forsberg can put the puck in the net. They don't necessarily have – I mean, I guess if you want to consider Matt Duchene, I'd have to go look at their roster, but I think Voracek would be near the top in assists at least, or points for their team this year.
Oh, he better be at $8.5 million.
They don't really have a guy that can dish the puck like Voracek can. And so that's the only reason I put him in. They don't have anybody, Voracek's age. Maybe they look at him for leadership type stuff. The flip side of that is Nashville's GM is not a moron and is not going to trade for an $8 million a year winger. So that might put the kibosh on that. But I think they have pieces where they could put something together.
They have pieces. I just don't think Voracek would be in the deal. Dan, where are you at on the acquiring Ellis?
No, I love Ellis. I mean, he signed 6.25 for the next 5 or 6 years. I mean, he's 30 years old and he has had the injuries, but I like him because he's got some snarl, like he to me is sort of like the ideal guy to play with a Provorov. Because he's like a Niskanen, but with a little more attitude, and he'll whack you as you go by. He'll slash you. He'll elbow you. Like, I like Ellis a lot. I was during the season, I was hoping that they might make a deal when it still looked like they had a chance to make the playoffs and Nashville was kind of really struggling. I was hoping they'd make a deal right then and there to get, Ellis or Ekholm. I agree with Jack that if you're going to try and trade Voracek, like, you're going to have to put a lot more in. Like, I was joking that I would literally trade a team every single pick in the draft this year if they would just take Jake Voracek. And I don't even know if a team would do it, because his salary is just an albatross.
Sucks.
So,
Dan, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, the same thing with Nolan Patrick. Like, who wants Nolan Patrick? Like, maybe someone will. But, I think any of these trades we're talking about is going to start with the first-round pick this year from the Flyers. You're probably going to have to move one of Myers or Sanheim. You're probably going to have to move like a top prospect, like a Frost or a Zamula. It's going to be interesting with Seth Jones to see what it would take to get him. I think it depends on if you're going to be able to extend him before you make the deal. But for a guy like Brian Ellis, I think, because right now I think Nashville is probably going to have to do the 8 skater protection instead of the 7 forwards and 3 defensemen, because right now they want to protect Ellis and Ekholm and Roman Josi and Dante Fabro. They've got 4 defensemen they want to protect. But the good news for them is that they really only have like 4 forwards worth protecting. Like you've got Johansson, Duchesne, Philip Forsberg, and Arvidsson or Luke Kunin or something like that. Because I don't think Tolvanen has to be protected. I don't think.
No,
but
I think he's still on the ELC, yeah.
But so it's not like they have to make a move. It's not like they can't protect those 4 defensemen. So you're going to have to give up a lot to get one of those guys. I'd love it if they got Ellis. I think the price for Jones is just going to be a little less, and I think he has a little bit more upside. But if you get Ryan Ellis, you know what you're getting. Like, he's very, very good. So I'd be all for if they could make a trade for Ryan Ellis. I think that would be great. It's fine with me. I mean, look, Seth Jones, Ryan Ellis, John Klingberg, Matt Dumba, maybe, but like any of those guys, I'd sort of be happy with. And then I think maybe you've got to sign a second tier guy to be maybe your second pair right-handed defenseman if you're going to be moving Myers in a deal, which we'll see. But like an Adam Larson or a David Savard or something. But yeah, I'm all for Ryan Ellis. Bring it on.
Yeah, I would love Ellis. The price, it kind of makes me go, I don't know. And then the other question is Nashville, and I know it was kind of, I don't want to say fraudulent, but they made the playoffs. Where do you think they are as a team right now? You think that they're going into sell mode, or they're even entertaining selling Ellis? Or are they going to try to see if they can pony up one more year? And then if they're doing poorly at the trade deadline, like you said, Jim, sell Ekholm, and get what they can and maybe look to move Ellis in that offseason?
I don't know. I'm hoping it feels like they're kind of similar to the Flyers. I'm not saying the Flyers are. I mean, the Flyers made the playoffs one time in the last 3 seasons now, right?
Yep.
So, they're not really that far ahead of the Predators. I mean, the Predators, I think they're in the similar situation. They're kind of like in transition. Like, where do we want to go with this team? They've always built from defense. They have a lot of D coming up the pipeline. Do they want to move one of these higher paid D? Like Ellis, I mean, the guys that they have coming up, they can look at Ryan Ellis and say, you know what? He's getting a little bit older. He's injured a lot. We have some of these young guys coming up. Why don't we see what we can get for him while we can? And the assets that we have coming in will potentially grow with the guys we have coming up through the pipeline. So it would be somewhat of a hockey trade. It would be like, okay, well, we took a step forward this year. How can we make a lateral move and still improve? I think there's an opportunity there for both teams. It's a matter of what they need back for Ryan Ellis, and I'm not 100% sure what it is. That's why spitballing a top line winger, because I don't think they're crazy for Victor Arvidsson anymore. Phil Myers comes in, he takes up your right-handed shot spot. They're taking a shot with him. Then you have Morgan Frost, Nolan Patrick, if they want to say, okay, well, he didn't want to play in Philly, so let's give him a shot in Nashville. He's legit. And obviously, you're first this year, and you might have to give up your first next year, because who gives a shit about the draft this year? So you might have to give up 2 ones if you're the Flyers, and that's fine. I can't name 3 players in this draft. To tell you the truth, I really don't care about it. I know that the first overall pick wants to go back to school, because he doesn't want to play for Buffalo, whoever the hell it is. So,
hey, JVR did that to us.
Get rid of your picks, man. Just trade your picks.
13's not too bad to dangle, but
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
That pick's worth a lot.
Yeah, that's not too bad, man. Like I'm glad we went through some hell last year, but that's not a bad pick. Teams, I know it's a weird draft when they're saying they haven't seen these guys play, but at the end of the day, they know who's good and who isn't.
Oh yeah,
considerably. Like, it may not be the perfect year, but they're gonna want that pick. Like, come on.
That's right around where we got Farabee, who's
14 was Farabee. Yeah, exactly.
Our most untouchable forward, So
yeah,
those draft picks are worth a lot. And I think the fact that teams haven't been able to do much scouting means that there's probably, there's a lot of ego involved, right, with making draft picks. I bet you these scouting departments are sitting around thinking to themselves, like, man, we're better than these other team scouting departments. And because of that, this is the year that we're really going to show it. Like, we're going to draft a guy at 13 that really should have gone number 6, but because we're smarter than everyone and we did better scouting, like we're going to get him. So in some ways, I feel like this year the draft picks might even be at a premium, like from that perspective, from a psychological perspective.
You know what player I'm seeing is probably going to be available and supposed to go right around 13, probably a little bit after. So teams might want to jump up and take him, and it's that goalie coming out. And I believe Detroit right now is
Swedish goalie.
What's that?
Is he Swedish goalie?
Yeah, he's the one going. I haven't looked at the draft in a while. It's that he should probably be the only one going in the first round, at least that high. I've seen him mocked to Detroit, and I think they're drafting 15th or something. So, like, if a team wants to jump up and take a goalie, Flyers make a lot of sense at 13th. It's just I don't know which team that would be. It obviously wouldn't be Nashville because they took the guy last year. But
can we pray for a draft day trade? Like, how long's it been? And I'm not talking
that. Like, people are expecting that, and every time outside of Holmgren trading for Pronger and Schenn being traded away in that deal, it hasn't really happened. You know, I mean, so I'm hoping, but I don't know, because you get closer and closer to your pick, and then you're just like, and it's over.
Yeah, Jesper Wallstedt, I think, is the goalie.
Yeah, that's it.
Swedish kid. One name, and again, I haven't done much scouting on these kids at all, but it's kind of cool. It's cool as we get older, and I'm getting up there in age. It's cool to see sons of NHL players that you knew. Like Cole Sillinger is a guy that a lot of people have going at 13, and his dad, Mike Sillinger, was a pretty good player. And, I scored a lot of goals with him in NHL 93, 94. So it's like, if they keep the pick and they took him, like, that'd be pretty cool. But
it's supposed to go right around that area. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that too. That's great. Yeah, I'll be all about that.
So speaking of trades here, and this kind of comes out of left field, but it's the second time that I've seen Oliver Ekman-Larsson mentioned as a potential target for the Flyers, just from fans, whatnot. Have you guys heard anything that maybe I haven't heard yet? Because I'm seeing, what about Oliver Ekman-Larsson? Now, I don't know about this trade, Chris, but would Oliver Ekman-Larsson do anything for you guys?
I mean, he's a talented defense. I think he's got a hell of a contract right now, if I remember correctly. The only Arizona named defensive I heard coming out of there was Goligoski. I haven't heard Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So I mean, that trade that we just saw on the page, I thought I saw that being rumored like 3 years ago. Haven't heard much about him lately. Honest to God, I thought he wasn't. I might be screwing up my years. I thought he had some injury issues, but I haven't really been following him. I really haven't heard a lot of him either since he signed his deal.
I mean, he's a left-handed defenseman, 29 years old. He makes like $8.25 million a year. So from the perspective of needing a right-handed D-man, might not be the best fit. But again, it's like I'm hoping they tear this thing down and build it back up. Like I want Travis Konechny gone. I want Nolan Patrick gone.
Do you really?
I'm with you.
Do you really want TK gone?
I want TK. Ship him out of here, man. I want him and Nolan Patrick. Put them in the same place. They can do their funny faces together.
Dude,
although it is kind of funny
right now.
It is kind of funny. Like, there always used to be all that stuff. Oh, TK and Nolan Patrick are such good buds. This year, I started seeing more and more stuff that was like Travis Konechny and Travis Sanheim are such good friends. I feel like everyone on this team hates Nolan Patrick. Like, this is the sense that I get. So maybe you don't ship them out together, but like, I like Travis Konechny, but his value, he's got to have some value. I would rather, again, get a guy like Bertuzzi from the Red Wings to replace him. Or I'm sick of watching a lot of these guys on this team. I mean, I'd be happy with getting rid of some of these guys and give some of these young kids, like I think Wade Allison and Tanner Lazinski are going to be a big part of this team next year. They're going to be on entry-level contracts. You're going to have, because you're going to spend some money on a defenseman, maybe 2 defensemen and a backup goalie. You're going to have some of these guys on these entry-level contracts, like an Allison, like a Lazinski. Maybe Morgan Frost can stay healthy for more than like one game and show us what he's got. But yeah, I want them to change the makeup of the forward group. That's what I want them to do. I want them to bring in some tougher forwards who have some skill and, sign some of these defensemen. So yeah, TK gone, Nolan Patrick. I'm telling you, if he's back on this team next year, I may not root for this team. I can't stand that kid. But
Dude, look what this organization did to you, Dan. Look what they did to us.
it's because, you know what it is? It's because they made us all look like idiots.
Yeah,
Like,
they really
at least
did.
For me, I thought this was the year. Like
The cup
I
year.
said, okay, last year they got to the Final Four, or they got within one game of the Final Four. They've got all these young kids. Like, they've got a franchise goalie. They're going to take a step forward this year, and they're going to be a legitimate cup contender. Instead, they're terrible. And it was basically, for me, I've been following this team for, I guess, 30 years. This was, for me, far and away the worst season in franchise history when you compare it to the expectations. Like, they've been worse. They were the worst team in the league when they lost the lottery and got JVR instead of Patrick Kane. But they've never had a worse season compared to expectations. And I'm mad. Like, I'm mad about it. You know, I hope the front office is mad about it. And we had to hear them blaming COVID. Like,
Almost like they had the excuses ready, dude. Like they planned it before the season even started. You heard them midway through the season. It was like, wait a second, is all this okay? Everything that's going on now is okay.
That's the vibe I got from Fletcher. I mean, I really did, in the sense that he didn't do anything in the offseason, knowing that flat cap, COVID, shortened season schedule, whatever. Like, I saw the writing on the wall. Now, if he does things right this offseason, he'll look like a genius. Like, I didn't want to do anything stupid and trade for a guy with so much term and money just to fill a spot. And now we're screwed, so he's still, the jury's out there. But I agree with Dan. This was the worst season expectation wise because of that. But also, I'd say from like 2015 to today, and there was a spike season in there, but this is like the worst stretch of Flyers hockey I've ever seen. And you can go back in their history, and it's hard to argue outside of when the team first came into the league and maybe the very early 90s. Was there more of a worse stretch in this team's history? Because they've always done it. If they had a bad year, they usually come right back. And this is like we're rebuilding, which we never really officially did. We just kind of waited out long contracts and wasted Giroux's prime, and now we finally see it coming together. We're seeing the kids come up and all that. We have a great season, and then this is a dumpster fire. And that's why I'm not pushing for Konecny to be traded, but I expect him to be traded. I expect him and whichever defenseman to be in some kind of package deal, whether it's Seth Jones or somebody else. That's what I expect to happen. And then even more. I think they should give up draft picks to get Seattle to take Voracek over JVR. If a team won't take Jake with all the draft picks, and that's probably not going to happen, but I do think that core of the locker room needs to change. Giroux can stay. Giroux can, play one more year, re-sign less money, and stay with the team. But I think guys like Jake need to go. JVR will only have a few more years at that point. Patrick, it was a complete waste of time and space. I can't stand the guy. It's unbelievable. It's been building for years now. Konecny, I don't dislike him, but he's definitely a complimentary piece, and we don't have the guys to put him with to get more out of him. So we just end up disliking him for face making and all the other stuff he does, or doesn't do, I should say. So I totally get it. And they need to move mountain. Fletcher needs to move mountains this offseason. It's the only way. I expect at least 3 or 4 significant names to be moved off this roster.
I like Travis Konecny. Like, I would only trade him if you can get a significant return. I'm not saying like trade him away for nothing. I just think you need to change the mix a little bit. I remember watching Konecny 2 years ago and being like, man, maybe he could turn into like a Brad Marchand type. Maybe he still can. He's still relatively young. But if we could get a good return for him, I would be open to it, because I think they need to shake up the mix a little bit up front.
And to the point where I expect it with what we've heard about this offseason, what we know needs to be done. He just makes too much sense of a name that will get moved from the offensive group. Like, his Voracek is going to be too hard. JVR probably goes to Seattle. We'll see. But if you're going to move a guy off from your forward group who's tradable, like, the first name that comes to mind is Konecny. It makes too much sense. And then you probably package him with Sanheim or Myers. I hope it's Myers in that case. And hopefully that gets you that, plus whatever else gets you the defenseman you need and whatever. And the fact that you're moving him off that core, I agree. You got to have guys like Allison and Lazinski and whoever step up and play those roles. But I still hope they do add something offensively to their team. And Nolan Paxter's definitely got to be going because he's a complete waste of space.
You guys are blowing my mind right now with this Konechny talk. I really can't believe it.
Well, Jim, look at it this way. I don't want him going, but when you consider what the team has to do and who they're talking about bringing in and what those teams would want in return, how does Konechny not check all those boxes? Like, he's the guy he's not even probably the main piece of the deal. It's probably him and somebody else or whatnot. I expect him to be traded. That's different than saying I want him traded. I just expect it.
I mean, Jim, you're talking about trading for Ryan Ellis and Matthias Ekholm in the same trade, and you're sitting here and being like, we'll give them Voracek and Morgan Frost and a first-round pick. Maybe we'll throw in the next 5. Maybe we'll throw in the next 5 first-round picks.
You're all
like, you want players like this. Like, the guys that people will want on this team are Joel Farabee, Travis Konechny, Ivan Provorov. Like, who else do you want from this team? Like, if
I asked the same thing. I asked a similar question to Jim Dowd a couple weeks ago. Who do you turn on the Flyers to watch? What player on this team makes you want to go out of your way to watch the Flyers, especially if you're not a Flyers fan, right? They don't have a single player where you're like, oh, I got to see Travis Konechny play tonight. All year. I don't know if it's been all year long since last year's playoffs. TK always kind of annoyed me. More so because of the TK fans than Travis Konechny, because I think he's a pretty good player. Very good regular season player.
He is.
He's still on that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. 100%, because I think I believe in it. And you're kind of seeing it, in the playoffs now. Watch the guys that score. Like, it's not always your top 6 guys that score goals in the playoffs. A certain type of player is putting pucks in the net. And if you're maybe TK, like I said, TK is a good regular season player. He scores regular season goals. The goals that are scored in the playoffs are different style goals. You have to be around the dirty areas, and TK is not that guy. And if we're talking about having success in the playoffs, I know we missed the playoffs, you need a guy like Travis Konechny to score. He's got a great contract. He just signed it before last season, 2 seasons ago now. That should add some value. I know he's a young kid. Now, I've never advocated for a Travis Konechny trade, but I wouldn't lose sleep over it either. Yeah, toss him in a deal for Ellis and Ekholm. I'm for it, but.
That's where I'm at. I expect it. I'm not pushing for it. I just expect it when I'm another team and I got a defenseman they want or anything they want. And I look at what their forward group. Who else am I asking for? TK makes the most sense.
I have an important question or point of clarification. Maybe my eyes are deceiving me. Jack, have you switched from red wine to white wine halfway through this podcast, video cast, or am I wrong?
No, the first glass, both are from last night, and I'm just doing cleanup. I had a glass of red, and I finished it, and then I'm finishing the bottle.
So I was right. You started with the full
glass of red,
and now you're on the white wine. Okay,
got very observant.
That's strong. I just wanted to double check. I thought I saw that, but
yeah, and they're both a day old too. This is
that's impressive.
Speaking of wine,
I should be watching playoff hockey, and I'm not. Flyers playoff hockey, I clarify.
Speaking of wine, my grapevine, not looking good this year, Dan. Not sure what happened to it.
What are we talking about?
I have a white grapevine. A white grapevine. I told you about this, I thought. You called me, what's that wine name you called me?
A sommelier?
Yeah. Are you a sommelier? Yeah, my grapevine's not growing right this year.
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, disappointed about that. But supposed to have a plethora of grapes this year. Not happening. Just like we were promised a plethora of Flyers wins.
Yeah, just like the Flyers.
Simoleon.
No grapes, no playoffs.
Yes.
Priceless.
That might be a new slogan for the show. No grapes and no playoffs. Yeah, so we're like 54 minutes in. I think we talked as much as we could about – I still blow my mind that Dan Silver wants to trade Travis Konechny. I
don't want to. I just think we might have to.
I'm for it, dude. I would love to see I would love to see all the fan favorites moved. And I just want to see what people do after that. Because this fan base has gotten so used to mediocrity that they're clinging to it, and I don't know why. There's better players out there, you know.
You know who you say, who do you tune in to watch, right? And you're not gonna like this answer, but
Christ.
for me, over the last half of the season, like one of the only guys who played like he actually gave a shit and gave post game quotes, and you know where I'm headed with this, post game quotes that called out the team on their bullshit. There's only one guy on this team that said we played like dog shit and we should own up to it. There's only one guy in the season that I saw playing with like fire at the end of the season. And yeah, every third game he'd have some horrible turnover that would end up in the back of our net. But like Shane Gostisbehere, man, he played with some fire this year and he was healthy. And they may need to move him because of his salary. But like he's a guy that like on the power play, I get excited when they set him up for a one-timer on the power play. Like when he shimmies at the blue line and goes around some guy, I get a little bit excited. And I think he plays with fire. Like, and I think that's what this team is missing. Yeah, he makes mistakes and he's probably not worth his salary, but I try and find a way to keep him because I think right now he's the best power play defenseman that they have. Ivan Provorov's a train wreck on the power play, and he was the top pairing guy last year. So maybe Cam York makes Shane Gostisbehere kind of expendable, but just watching the team, like he played with fire, man, and none of these other guys were.
Yeah,
I'll agree.
Definitely right about the quotes. I was gonna, when Jim asked the question, there were two names that came to mind. First was Joel Farabee, but even that wasn't sustained. It was for the most part good. There was no quotes. Ghost was the guy calling out the team and whatnot. He was fire one way or another, whether he was scoring or causing a turnover, like he said. But you're 100% right. The team missed that. They missed the grit. Like watching Scott Lawton take a jackknife powerbomb at center ice. Nobody do anything about it.
That.
Like, I mean, that was, I've never seen that before in a Flyers jersey. Oh my God, I was so embarrassed. Like, come on, man.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, Ghost did play well towards that. The last month or two towards the end of the season. It was consistent. It wasn't sporadic because he kept playing well, and it was like, all right, well, it's hard for me to really go out of my way to compliment him because he's been kind of pretty bad for a couple years now. So it's like, all right, prove to me that this is actually you playing well for an extended period of time, and I can start talking you up again, or just phase back out like you usually do or whatever. So dude, it's a good point to bring up because he can be an electrifying player. We all saw it his rookie year. Everybody was a Shane Gostisbehere fan. I was too. I think that's why I hate him so much now is because he can be so great and he stunk the last couple of years. So you got a point there.
To be honest with you, I don't hate him because of him. I hate him because of the people who won't let go. Like truly, like 65-point season let go kind of thing. And it's like, come on.
He's not that guy. Like he makes defensive mistakes. He's not a perfect defenseman. He is what he is, right? Like if he was making $2.5 million, I feel like it'd be like a no-brainer to keep the guy,
Yeah. And you kind of like, if you had a better team around him, you can just put him on your power play and he plays like you don't really expose him at 5-on-5 unless you absolutely have to. And like, then suddenly he's like, hey, we know what we got in this guy. It's not so bad, but like the second coming of Christ is still, some people are still hanging on to that. And it's like, guys, like wake up, like enough. I'm going to change his jersey to 65. Like I've had enough of this, and it's like, I don't hate him. Again, like you said, Jim, I was a huge fan. I was in Toronto for the World Cup of Hockey, wearing my Shane Gostisbehere Team North America jersey and everything. It just, money does things, and this team doesn't have a whole lot of it, and they need a lot of work done. And he's going to fall unless they move mountains and somehow can afford to keep him, and it's not worth trading him. He just seems like another name that's going to go at some point. He's lasted this long, but he did play a little bit better. Maybe that makes somebody go,
Hopefully.
Maybe we can change him. Maybe we can fix him. Change the scenery does a lot for players.
Did you guys see that I ran into him at the Belmont Stakes horse race?
Dude, I was so happy for you that you got that picture with him.
Dude, that was awesome. I was at the Belmont Stakes. It was like my first major sporting event that I'd been to post-COVID, and I'm walking around in the clubhouse, and I see this guy like taking a photo with some friends, and I'm like, I took a second look, and I'm like, is that Shane Gostisbehere? Like, that really looks like Shane Gostisbehere. And then I looked at the people he was with because I figured, like, all right, if I recognize someone else with him that's a Flyer, I'll know it's him. And there wasn't anyone. But I kept looking and I'm like, I'm pretty damn sure that's Shane Gostisbehere. So he's like over at the ATM with some buddies. I'm waiting. And he leaves the ATM and he's walking away. And I go, Ghost. And no reaction. And then I'm like, all right, I'll try it once more. And I go, Ghost. And sure enough, he turns around. And I'm like, oh, my name's Dan. Like, I'm a big Flyers fan. You know, just I gave him a horse to bet on who ran third at like 30-1. So I'm hoping he bet like win, play, show. But he, you know, what can you tell from an encounter like that? But he was nice. Like I said, man, I'm a fan of yours. I think you get a bad rap. You know, I can't believe what Jim says about you. But like, I think you're a good player, and I hope you stick around this year. And I asked him if I could get a photo with him. So.
Well, you say, yeah, F that guy. Cool. He's a douche, a bald asshole.
But no, that was cool. You know what's funny is, like, I've done some podcasts with Jason Martinez, who does a really good job with Flyers Daily, and he hates Shane Gostisbehere. Like, Ghost has, like, they have a bad relationship. And I know a lot of the reporters that cover the team don't like him. So I think he can definitely, like, be a little bit of a dick. But I'd rather someone be a dick like that, where he's like sort of calling out the team sometimes and plays with fire, than like Nolan Patrick. Because Nolan Patrick just like doesn't want to talk to anyone. Like he just there's no passion. He's just like disinterested. So even if Shane Gostisbehere is kind of an asshole, like I'd rather that kind of an asshole than Nolan Patrick. But no, it was really fun running into him. It was like the highlight of the day for me.
You know, as much smack as I talk about Ghost, he shows up on my Facebook as a suggested friend. I was like, who is trolling me right now? Like, come on, stop.
That's Facebook listening to you.
Did you request him?
I thought about it. I don't know. I don't know if I should. He don't start listening to the pod and realize, I don't know why I friended this guy.
He's shorter than me, by the way. I'm 5'10".
Yeah, he might have. How tall is Ghost?
He's listed as 5'10", but he's not. I mean, I'm 5'10". I'm barely 5'10", and he's definitly shorter than me. But his thighs were kind of like tree trunks, you know?
Oh, yeah.
That makes
Big
sense.
Hams. Ham hocks.
Jockey. No.
Dude, coming to the end here. Over an hour into the episode. I know you got a hockey game. An hour?
Big roller hockey game tonight.
Yeah, man. Right. You got to go get stretched out, get loosened up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where can people find you at, Dan?
They can find me on Twitter at dsilver88. Throw me a follow, argue with me, call me an idiot, whatever you want. I can take it. And
do not call Dan an idiot.
Yeah, and a couple podcasts, the O&B Puckcast regularly on that, and Gettin Bullied. So that's pretty much where you can find me. I love you guys, by the way, man. I always enjoy whenever Jim messages me and like, hey, come on. I'm like, man, that's awesome because I love you guys. Like it's always fun.
I really appreciate that, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we already know the people watching live, people listening to the podcast later on today. If you're not already listening to the O&B podcast and Getting Bullied, you're missing out. Go listen to those guys. 2 great Flyer shows. The more Flyer podcasts, the better. Make sure you guys go listen. Dan, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yep.
Jack, what do you think? Should we wrap this one up?
I could keep going, but I think sounds like you were leaning to me to say, yeah, that's enough.
Dude, you just put a couple new shows out, Full Circle and a Full Circle Takeover, dude. Make sure you guys check those ones out. Jack and Steve always do a great job. They kind of bring the full circle of the playoffs back to the Flyers. 2 awesome episodes. Make sure you check out the new show I'm doing in the mornings, HW, in case you missed it, where I just, bring you up to speed on everything you may have missed the day before. It's fun. 15-minute show. And let's wrap this up. What do you think? I got to pee. Dan's got to play hockey. You got to get more wine over there.
So he went back to the red. Did you see that? So he's done.
I missed it.
Yeah,
very observant.
He went back to the red. Oh no, you don't have any red left. All right.
Okay. Very observant over there.
I can go to? Is there a blush?
I could have swore a rosé.
There you go, Manny with the rosé. Actually, right there. Good call. All right, guys, that's going to do it. We're going to wrap this one up. We'll be back next week with another HW. Thanks again, Dane.